1965. New York cigarette tax doubles. Organized smuggling begins, marked by multiple murders. (1982). This decade experiences a 500% increase in tobacco taxes. 1985. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police notice an expanding trade in the cigarette black market. 1991. A carton of Canadian cigarettes is now $35 more than that same carton sold in the U.S. 1992. Grand River Enterprises is established. The RCMP believe that 90% of contraband tobacco originates from Grand River Enterprises. 1993. Canada's contraband tobacco market is up from 1% market share in 1987 to 31% in 1993. Canadian wrestler, mob enforcer, and cigarette smuggler Dino Bravo is found shot 7 times in the head. Organized crime is suspected. 1994. To combat massive trade in illicit tobacco, the Canadian federal government reduces tax by $5 per carton. 1996. Grand River Enterprises acquires a federal license through a plea bargain with Canadian federal prosecutors to drop tax-related prosecution. 2000. Mohammed Hamoud and associates smuggled cigarettes from North Carolina to Michigan, making more than $8 million. More than $100,000 was sent overseas to Hezbollah. 2001. The Canadian government rolls out federal tobacco control strategy, proposes higher tobacco taxes to reduce smoking. 2003. A Yemeni national and cigarette smuggler is arrested with a ticket to the World Trade Center dated September 10, 2001. 2008. Congressman Peter King, ranking member of the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, and Terror, releases report, Tobacco and Terror: How Cigarette Smuggling is Funding Our Enemies Abroad. The RCMP cites research and contraband tobacco strategy report showing 17% of smokers consumed illegal tobacco products in 2006, 22% in 2007, and 33% in 2008. In a 2008 report, the Auditor General of Canada estimates the loss of tobacco tax revenue for fiscal 2006-2007 in the range of $500 million. Grand River Enterprises files a NAFTA lawsuit in efforts to stop massive fines for escrow and tax evasion charges throughout the U.S. The lawsuit is dismissed. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police sees over 1 million cartons of contraband cigarettes, 73% higher than 2007. Quota system stopped. A new $300 million buyout program is supposed to move tobacco farmers to other crops, but many assign farms to others and resume growing tobacco. 2009. The Canada Border Services Agency intercepts 11 sea containers with 583,000 cartons of cigarettes and 6,000 kilograms of chemical drugs. The Center for Public Integrity, an investigative U.S.-based news organization, published an expose on Canada's boom in smuggled cigarettes. Cigarette butts collected from the grounds of high schools in Ontario and Quebec demonstrate 45% of cigarette butts from 75 sites in Quebec and 30% of 110 sites around Ontario are illegal. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police execute Project Chateau with 22 arrests and seizure of 298 cases of contraband tobacco. Police suspect involvement by the Hells Angels. Royal Canadian Mounted Police seized 65,700 cartons of contraband cigarette cartons outside of a residence in Ontario. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police's Project Machine busts Hells Angels member Salvatore Cazzetta, arrests 55 others, seizes 33 cases of cigarettes, 139 cases of tobacco, 900 grams of marijuana, and 1 kilo of cocaine. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police report 25 organized crime groups are involved in contraband tobacco across Canada. More than 1,000 cartons of Vietnamese cigarettes are intercepted. (2011) Project Cinderford is a joint investigation resulting in the bust of an international organized crime gang with 35 arrests. Contraband cigarettes are seized along with cocaine, ecstasy, and firearms. Grand River Enterprises purchased Norfolk Leaf and renames it Simcoe Leaf, giving it large extensive access to Ontario tobacco farmers. The Ontario government legislation transfers licensing raw leaf tobacco from Ontario Flue-Cured Tobacco Growers Marketing Board to the Ontario Ministry of Revenue. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police-led Project Jacoby seizes 50 cartons of contraband cigarettes. An unknown number of people, including some allegedly tied to the Hells Angels, distributed contraband tobacco throughout Quebec and New Brunswick. The federal peach-colored stamp becomes mandatory on all tobacco products in Canada, effective April 1, 2011. Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper and United States President Barack Obama signed Beyond the Border legislation. 2012. A taxing dilemma suggests a further increase in taxes would support the growth of trade in illicit tobacco. Grand River Enterprises strikes an annual agreement to sell raw leaf to China Tobacco International. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police seized millions of dollars of contraband cigarette packaging. The seizure represents 2 million cartons of contraband cigarettes and tens of millions of dollars in evaded duties and taxes. A $500 million class action lawsuit brought by tobacco farmers accusing the federal and Ontario governments of turning a blind eye to contraband is dismissed. The National Post examines the Royal Canadian Mounted Police report, stating farmers are allowed to seed 10% above reported crop yield in case of crop damage. A reporting loophole allows farmers to sell 10% of their yield to illicit manufacturers. 2013. The Ministry of Finance announces a grace period for all involved in the raw leaf tobacco industry prior to March 21, 2013. Operation Tobacco Road suspects have links to known terrorists. New York Attorney General is concerned that $14 million in missing profits has been sent to fund terrorist groups in the Middle East. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police estimate that 50 contraband tobacco manufacturers are operating on First Nations territories in Ontario and Quebec. A bill establishes a Royal Canadian Mounted Police anti-contraband tobacco force. 2014. Montreal police break up a $30 million tobacco trafficking ring involving Montreal's Italian mafia and Aboriginal organized crime. The Canadian Ministry of Finance delays the implementation of regulatory regime until January of 2014, thereby creating a regulatory vacuum and the opportunity for an illicit tobacco free-for-all. Bill C-10 passes, an act to amend the criminal code, trafficking in contraband tobacco, sponsored by Canada's Minister of Justice. 2015. An amendment to the Tobacco Tax Act puts Ontario's Ministry of Finance in charge of licensing tobacco growers.